what you were doing, what are some of the reactions you were getting from coaches around the world?
So this is really interesting. It's fascinating to me. I think that there are several reactions that I've come across that are like a pattern, and I'm seeing these patterns because I see these patterns on the court every day. So, and I tend to look at things in patterns. The first response is it depends on where the coach is coming from, whether they're working with very high-level players, maybe that are working to be on the tour, or they're working for high school kids, or even just like juniors in tournaments, or even college players. You get different. It depends on where you are, because I've always said perspective has everything to do with proximity. Okay, so I think any coach that's out there, any tennis coach that's out there, is going to mentally ascend to the data. And what I mean by that is they're going to agree with the data, right? Once you show them the data, and there's lots of data out there now. I mean, we had a small size data, 100,000 data points and 500 matches. But to me, that was enough, because if there was any inconsistency in the numbers, we would have seen it even in that small sample size. And so then when I started talking to Craig, and then all the data that's come since 2014, I mean, it's there. So I think for that, I think all coaches can agree, look, points are short. I definitely, I have a reason for that. I explained about it in the book, but I'll say it here. It's because when you think about your eyes are attractive to motion. So if I was talking, I just sat here monotone voice and didn't move, your eyes would tend to maybe stray somewhere else. But when you're watching a tennis match, most people look at the ball traveling back and forth. I mean, unless you train your eyes, most people don't actually watch a player in isolation. I was doing it last night, and even then it was hard. Like I was just watching Federer move back and forth just on his side of the court, without the temptation of looking at the ball and looking at how the other player is responding. And so when we watch a tennis match, we're looking for the long point. And we want it to go on, right? And when it's short, we just kind of dismiss it. We put it away, we forget about it. And then we're looking for the long point. And then when it finally shows up, we're like, aha. And then we see several, and then we remember those, and we string them together, and we're like, oh man, someone asked us, how was the match? It was unbelievable. We should have seen all the long points. There were like 6 in the entire match. So it's understandable that coaches, players, parents would not believe you at first, right? Points, the average point, 60% of the points are lasting 0 to 4. How can this be? Well, it's happening. I mean, numbers are black and white. It's hard to argue with the numbers. Now, as far as like how you take that and interpret it, there's lots of different ways to do that. What we're finding is we're sticking with the data, and we're creating out of what the data is telling us. Look, points are short, so our training should be in short bursts, focus on 2 to 4 shots, and then do it in that 1-2 reset mentality where you're staying in the present moment. And that's the big thing, is we want the player to stay in the present moment. And every coach will agree, every tennis coach that's worth their salt will agree, you've got to get that player to stay in the present moment, to not think about the shot, the point they just lost, or think about that bad line call, or look too far into the future, like, oh, if I break here, then I can win serve next, and then the match is over. Or, even further than that. So that's the distraction. The distraction is to get caught up in the past and to get caught up in the future. Whether you're just starting out playing tennis, or whether you're a veteran, or whether you're on tour, I mean, it's that pressure to allow yourself to get yourself out of the present moment is huge. So that's the sort of the foundation by which we develop everything with the practices, is we got to get this player to stay in the present moment. The second reaction I get is like all in, like they get it. I just ask them, think about what you've seen, what you've experienced. Think about the struggles on the court and off the court, mentally and emotionally, and then dealing with, focus and refocus. And they get it, and they want to know more. Right? They want to know, okay, what am I doing? How am I arranging it? How do I split the time up during how do I take an hour and break it down? Right? How do I work on serve and serve 1, return and return 1? How do I work on technique? How do I put it all in context? So that's cool. I'm mentoring some young coaches in this, and they're having great success. They've got players that are, even their adult players are bumping up 2.5 to 3.0, 3.0 to 3.5, 3.5 to 4.0. They got juniors starting to win matches and tournaments, and because it just works. I mean, unless you do it and do it yourself and do it for a little bit and test it. That's why I tell all the coaches, just you need to test this for yourself. So that's it. And then some are just, they've done it their way for so long, and it's coaching a certain way is at the last 40 or 50 years, and it's passed down from generation to generation, or club to club, or pro to pro, and they're kind of stuck in that way, right? And I say stuck because I think that you can't allow yourself to get stuck in anything, even in this. You've got to constantly take everything you do on the practice court and measure it up against those three things. Does it have to do with winning? Does it have to do with keeping score? And does it have to do with the match court mindset first? And then because there's two ways you can practice this game. You can practice to be pretty and perfect, or you can practice to win points. And if you're going to play tennis matches, you're going to keep score, so you're going to have a winner and loser. So it's your purpose, and you got to define what your purpose is. And so, and I deal with this a lot, especially with adult players, or even, I was out with one of my male players the other day, adult player, and he's like, well, we just want to hit the ball hard. I'm like, okay, that's great, but just don't expect yourself to hit it hard and make it in every single time, because you're just not on the court enough, right? Do you want to win the point, or do you want to, flex your muscles and hit the ball hard? So he kind of laughed. He's like, yes, Ron, you're right. So that's it. That's so yeah, those are the basic three responses I have, right? They mentally ascend, but they're not quite sure about how to go about it, or they're a little sketchy. They need more information, right? Or they need to go out and practice. In college D2, D3 tennis, you have a lot of play and don't miss, and that's what I mean about practice. So if your mentality when you play a point is you're waiting for the other player to miss, that's a perfection mentality. You have to be perfect. You can't miss. If you're waiting for your opponent to miss, you can't miss. So that's perfection mindset, and that's what I mean about you don't really want to train that way, because it can be very frustrating if you can't make constantly over time. But if you run into a player that really understands striking on the first two shots, and the next two shots are right into their patterns of play, you're going to be in a heap of trouble if you're basically just running back and forth on the baseline and looping the ball back. You're going to get in trouble, and that's what we're seeing, I think, in the game. And there's an art of coaching, and there's an art of playing, and there's the science and the data of coaching, and the data of playing, that a player, if they understand, hey, this point is it's right when it's about to begin, it's about to end. And that can be a mental advantage. If your opponent doesn't believe it, but you believe it, I think you have a mental edge and an emotional edge, because you don't allow things to carry on and build, right? One of the interesting statistics, and I'll share this with you, is that we found that a point that goes into extended rally plus 9 shots, the next point the next point you play right after a long point, about 90% chance is going to end within 4 shots. And that makes total sense if you think about it, because you're fatigued physically, fatigued mentally, and fatigued emotionally usually after a long point. So unless you take longer to reset on your between points, like in your reset rituals, before you play the next point, typically the player that understands the next point is going to be really short, and they play it that way, they win it. And so because they take extra time. So that's something we found that's very interesting, and that's a part of the mentality we train.